Welcome back to the Norfolk Currents podcast. I'm Paul Rice, and we're joined today by Mel Price with WPA, the Work Program Architects. Mel, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Thanks. So Mel, for those folks who aren't familiar with WPA and what you do, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and WPA?
Sure. WPA stands for Work Program Architects. We're a multidisciplinary design firm, and we work on projects of all scales, specifically difficult projects that start to really solve problems around social, economic, and coastal resilience.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You mentioned multidisciplinary, and I think that's one of the things that stands out most for me when looking at some of the projects you've taken on is it's not just architecture or even urban planning or design generally, but I also see fabrication and graphic design and interior design there. Can you tell us more about how you came to be so interdisciplinary, which I think is maybe unusual for architecture firms, right?
It is, especially for a firm of our size, and I think it's our strength. So we really got our start, Tom and Peter and I, years ago with a group called Revision Norfolk. And so we started that actually with Drew Varsky from Grow, our friend Kevin Murphy, many others. It was a group of artists, architects, writers, all different disciplines. And it was a group that came together that aimed to attract and retain talent to the area. And back then, there wasn't always a lot going on after work on the weekends, and we wanted to kind of reinvigorate the area. So we started doing really tactical urbanism projects. And in working through those processes, Tom and Peter and I met each other, and that led to us starting WPA.
Wow. And so you started WPA, when was that? That was 2010?
2010. So it was just Tom and I. Peter was actually shutting down his industrial design and fabrication company at the time that was in the Neon District called 540 Design. And so he joined us and helped us start the company as well. And we're now almost 20 people looking to hire. And as you said, architecture, urban design, interior design, graphic design, industrial design, you name it. So
cool. So over those, 13 years from then to now, you've grown from the first 2-3 of you to now 20, hopefully plus. So it sounds like part of your goal of attracting and retaining talent is also now translated to the company you're running today. How's that going? Is it easier to attract and retain talent today in Norfolk than it was in pre-2010?
I think it absolutely is. And I see just this incredible hopefulness with younger generations of people wanting to feel really deeply invested and committed to their community. And we're fortunate that we do projects that are meaningful, they're embedded in the community. So a young architect or interior designer coming to work here can see how quickly their efforts could shape and improve the city around them. So that helps a lot in attracting and retaining people to Norfolk and to WPA.
Awesome. And do you think that there's still a lot of work to do on the kind of attracting and retaining talent in today's 2023 city of Norfolk?
Definitely. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. There are, other cities that maybe got a start a couple decades before us in how they kind of grow their economy, and people like choices and they like to live in amazing walkable places. And so we're building up that part of our city now. And I think Norfolk and really the Hampton Roads region as a whole is great if you want to be someone actively working to build that place up.
Yeah.
You can have a really big impact in a short period of time. So we attract those type of people.
And part of that is the work you're doing on pro bono projects and community first projects. Can you tell us more about the kind of ethos and values of WPA that drive you guys to take on so many of those projects?
Sure. When we started, it was a time when architecture firms were doing a lot of design competitions all over the country. And the idea was you would get to be creative, you'd get to design like you did in school, and then hopefully you'd gain some notoriety. So it was really about raising the prominence of the firm. We also saw a lot of wasted time and design talent go into that. And so we made a firm commitment when we started to not do design competitions and instead to take all of that effort and actually design and build things in our community. So that led to projects like the Plot 1 that we did with our friends at Revision Norfolk and hundreds of people in the community, Plot 2, and now the Elizabeth River Trail. So that's one of our largest pro bono projects, and we lead the master planning for that. And then we've brought together dozens of other amazing design firms all over the region to help us do that and grow the ERT.
So on top of those pro bono projects and kind of community focus, I understand that you also have an open books policy and pathway to ownership for your employees. Is that a big part of your strategy to attract and retain talent?
Yes, I think we recognize that it is now. I don't think it started out that way. I mean, we kind of didn't know what we didn't know, right? We decided WPA would be totally open books. So everyone knows what everyone's making. Everyone knows what's in the bank account. It is fully financially transparent. And the thought was we would teach people kind of the ups and downs of starting and running a small business. Everyone would have exposure to it. And it was a bit of an experiment. And the experiment was, if you give people access to that kind of information, will they turn around and do good things with it and behave like owners? And shockingly, of course they did. And we had people who were really committed. So we wanted to turn around and reward them with ownership. And that really helps us, I think, attract more diverse candidates. It helps level out the playing field in a world where people come from different financial circumstances. They may be helping family members. They may have a lot of student debt. It's hard enough to buy a house these days, much less buy shares in a company. So by gifting shares to WPA to folks who've demonstrated commitment, it's a way to have people kind of recommit to us.
So you've been able to kind of take on so many really important projects in the community. Do you think that some of that trust building you're doing with your employees and then maybe with the community as well is helping you to come out ahead and win some of these projects that are so prominent or substantial?
I think so. I hope so. I think obviously we love to win good, meaningful work. I do think kind of our spirit of listening and, entering a room or a neighborhood or community with kind of no preconceived ideas and understanding that each space is unique. And being able to, most of the time we're helping people visualize. They may not know how to design the buildings or spaces they want, but they can tell us how they want to feel in their neighborhood. And I think it's that spirit of listening really well, being open to any ideas, and being able to just quickly sketch that out in front of people that allows people to dream. And that in turn wins us work.
That's awesome. One of the projects that I think is maybe most notable is your work at Assembly that includes the WPA offices and offices of places like Grow. Can you tell us more about how that project came together?
Sure. We had been actually following Drew and the Grow folks. We actually opened our first office downtown because they had opened downtown. We obviously did volunteer work together for like 15 years.
Wow.
And then when Drew decided to buy this building and make this investment, we competed to win it. So we competed against some amazing firms all across Virginia. And the project was so meaningful to us because it's the culmination of years of this community work, which is, we believe in this place, we believe in this community. How do we design a space that's going to make everyone feel welcome, all ages, all backgrounds, and bring together creative community to collaborate in this space? And so it's been an amazing place to be in, and it's been so good to see people, our friends and clients that we care about really deeply, Norfolk State, so many of the civic leagues, people come in and say we feel just as at home here as we did in your old office in the Monticello Arcade.
The Assembly office is kind of a similar project to a lot of other projects, whether it's maybe civic design or office spaces or residential, where it seems like there's a focus on bringing people together. Do you think that's a through line through the projects you've been doing?
I do. I think, it's those three pillars that connect the dots: the coastal resilience work, the social resilience work, which is this connecting people, and then the economic resilience work of creating an environment where everyone can kind of start to lift each other up financially and how they perform and their companies perform. So that's really the filter through which we decide if we're even going to take on a project. So we have to check two of those three boxes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's a through line.
So one project that maybe hasn't come to fully fruition yet is the Chrysler Museum's Glass Studio expansion.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going really well. Rob Crawshaw, who was the lead architect here on Assembly, is also the lead architect on that project. And it's one that we've been working on actually since 2016. We did the master plan for the Chrysler Museum that told us, where to expand the glass studio. and just got under construction this year. You can see it, it's really starting to become very prominent as you move up Duke or Grace Street. And it's so exciting to go from, the capacity that they have now to have this, 200 person amphitheater, to have all of these individual hot shop, cold shop, mold shop. It's really going to boost the Chrysler's already prominent position within the glass world and just give us all a really fun place to go and be and learn about something that this area is really good at.
Yeah. And so how did you, I guess, integrate all those elements into a design for the Chrysler in terms of, having lots of, there's a hot shop, a cold shop, and also a space for people to come in, assembly. How did all those mesh together into one space? Was that a difficult process, or?
That one, it's a complex building. And, it's a small building, but it's got a lot of parts. It's driven by the client and also glass artists from around the world. So that was a really fun design process where we invited the client in to sketch and draw with us. And we use this rapid iteration process where do 20 designs in 5 minutes. Okay,
Wow.
Now do 10 designs in 10 minutes. And we keep iterating and iterating. And it's kind of a yes and approach. We present our work, somebody has a good idea, we mesh it with another good idea, and then the whole group gets behind it and pushes it forward. So the client participated with us in that process. And then when the International Glass Art Society conference was held here in Norfolk, we got to do a peer review, pin up the drawings, and have glass artists who were running like the best facilities in the whole world come and critique our drawings and help, correct if we'd gone astray somewhere, help us correct that. So we've had a lot of really good, talented eyes on that. So we hope it's going to be great.
Yeah. So hopefully it really is built to be maybe one of the best glass studios in the world.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I know that WPA jumped in to help with the Open Norfolk program and to build these kind of rapid spaces outside to allow people to dine and enjoy businesses and keep those businesses open. Can you tell us more about what it was like to go through that process?
Yes. It was so much fun. It was a tough time all over the world. It was a really fun time for us because we were completely out in the field. We were not behind desks. We were really doing three things. We were helping small businesses, specifically restaurants, stay open by building this outdoor dining. We were making streetscape improvements, doing some road diets to help pedestrians, everyone out walking around, walking dogs, moving around the neighborhood, feel more comfortable and safe, giving them space to space out. And also tackling some problems that have been around a while. Streets where people were speeding. We did curb bump outs. We added parking on Bush Street.
Wow.
We got to go around. We bought a paint machine and we started striping things. We did this amazing road diet and mural project with Teens with a Purpose over in St. Paul's and did some beautiful design work with the kids there to make the connection to the Purpose Park a little better. And then the last part is we simultaneously built 4 temporary parks.
Wow.
And then hired staff, hired programmers, tried to get the entire arts community out. So the symphony, the opera, gave places for people to learn outside, to run their businesses. People started new businesses out of those parks. It was a fun time.
And so even though the pandemic has mostly passed, knock on wood somewhere, it sounds like a lot of that work has been parlayed into some of the public spaces dining programs that are now kind of making their way through city council and city planning, right?
Yeah. So it led to some long lasting relationships and I think some trust with ABC, with code enforcement. We worked hand in hand with police and firefighters and fire marshal and of course city officials. So there's now the permanent kind of open spaces outdoor dining program that's both in the right of way, the streeteries, and then on private property. So we helped kind of loosen up the regulations around what it would take for someone to be able to just, add some outdoor dining on their property and give people more places to be and enjoy being outside. We've got a nice climate and we could take more advantage of it.
So between the Open Spaces project and navigating all those permitting, and not to mention all the other projects you've done with the city of Norfolk and just in the city of Norfolk, it sounds like you guys have become kind of, ninjas in navigating the planning and permitting process. Is that fair to say?
Oh gosh, I don't know if anyone's really a ninja. I mean, it's tough. It's always evolving. So I think what we've gotten good at is we've built trusted relationships with people, at all levels of city government. So one, we have to know the zoning ordinance. We have to know the processes really well. We
Right.
have to know them very well. But second, we know who to go ask if we need some help or if we have an idea and we think something needs to change. We're able to go and say, I think we could help make this process a little bit easier. Can we work on this? So with our contract, projects come up in many different ways. Either Department of Planning is thinking years ahead and thinking about something like the old Huntersville Plan book or Missing Middle Plan book or pattern book. Or we can come up with an idea and say, I think we really need to push this initiative. Could we make it a project? One other part of that contract is we're here as a resource to other developers, builders, architects, designers. When a project is really important to the city and people need some help getting through those steps, sometimes we get to be a resource for them as well.
Yeah, it's awesome that you're there to guide through that process. Do you think that the process for kind of maybe the small business owner is easy or simple to get through, or is it something that needs work to get up?
All of the information is out there. It's in a lot of different places. And I think there's a lot of work to do in that space. I think between planning and economic development, they've made a ton of strides, but there's also increased attention on all of this the last couple of years. Yeah. What we found in Open Norfolk that was most successful is the personal touch. For example, if you have a really stressed out restaurant owner and it's a pandemic and times have been tough, and I remember picking up the phone and calling and saying, there's this $10,000 grant. I think you'd be a great candidate. Why don't you apply? And the answer oftentimes was, no, I'll never win that. I don't think I could. And we learned that's not enough for us to do. Yeah. So it was the next step. The next call was, okay, I know you can win this. Would you at least give me 10 minutes? I'm going to drive to your business. We're going to sit down together. I'm going to ask you some questions and fill it out for you. And then it was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And then it's, oh, hey, by the way, you won the grant. And so it's that like one-on-one personal relationship and hand-holding that sometimes is needed, especially to bridge the gap. People come into the business ownership with different backgrounds and confidence levels. And our job really is to help even the playing field and get everybody up to that level.
So how many restaurateurs were you guys able to kind of get through that process?
Oh, gosh. We interacted with 160 plus restaurant owners and small businesses.
Wow.
We drove or walked to every single locally owned business in the whole city. We mapped them out. We had their personal contact information. We were texting with some of them at 1 a.m. We were driving a U-Haul around, Beth and I, picking up furniture, going and assembling it for people at their businesses. I mean, it was fun because we were out there. I remember sitting in Lambert's Point in the side yard of this restaurant, putting together picnic tables, and the restaurant owners, giving us food to sample. Yeah. So it was just a fun time to really feel connected to the community.
Yeah, that's awesome that so much community connection could come out of, what's kind of a bad time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, one of the biggest projects going on in the city of Norfolk, and arguably one of the biggest downtown redevelopment projects in the country right now, is the St. Paul's project. I know you all have been really involved in that. Can you tell us more about what your role is in that project, given that there's so many actors and players there?
Yeah. Well, there's hundreds of people working on it all over the country. It's led by, originally, really the mayor brought everyone together, and then Dr. Perry, Marcia McGill, the whole team, Department of Housing and Community Development. But our particular role and my role is to be a resource for the developer and for architects all over the country as they come in to make sure they understand, who and what Norfolk is, what the vision is, what the design vision is, that was given to us by the residents who lived in Tidewater Gardens, and to help deliver on the promise that we made to them. So it's that constant reminder of going back to the vision. This is what the residents wanted. This is what we've promised to deliver. Let's stay the course. Here's how to tweak this design in order to better achieve those goals. So one of the cool things we do, and if you've seen the videos, we maintain this 3D model. It's free software, it's SketchUp, and every architect designing buildings on that site kind of hands over their building model, and we plug it into this master model, which, at the end of the day, we can 3D print it. Residents can kind of go into VR, put on the VR goggles, And what I'm really excited for is like for kids before they move back into the neighborhood, like they'll be able to walk up their street and see their new home. And so I think it's, this is a huge change. There's a lot of controversy around this project. It's a tough thing to do to move people out of a flooded neighborhood that had poor infrastructure and rebuild it and try and ask people to do the really hard thing and move twice and come back home. And I think we can only do that with good storytelling, goodwill, and really following through and delivering on the promises we made. So I think it's one of the most meaningful projects we'll ever work on in our career, the opportunity to kind of undo, generations of trauma that came from concentrating poverty and fulfill the promise we made to the residents. So I can see it, I can see the whole new neighborhood in my head. And our goal is to get as many people to move back as possible. And the People First team is really doing the hard work of that, putting people first.
So for those folks who are maybe doing the VR walkthrough or just checking out the 3D model online, what are the design elements they should look for that you think are really stand out and really special or unique in the St. Paul's development?
Yeah, a couple things. One, the whole road network has been redone. So when St. Paul's Boulevard came through and Church Street was torn down, the roads were put there purposefully to disconnect the people who lived there from opportunity, which is downtown. And what we did is we wanted to connect the historic street grid east-west back through our city, make the east-west connections, and then do something meaningful. You have this beautiful St. Mary's Basilica, the only Black basilica in the whole country with this gorgeous restored spire. And so we aligned Church Street with the spire of St. Mary's and then the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. And then the whole street grid works off of that. After that, you layer in kind of the green infrastructure and solving the water problem. So you've got a 26-acre Blue Greenway Resilience Park up along the side, and pretty soon you'll see some drawings for that go public with beautiful park spaces and pavilions and amenities. You'll see the Blue Greenway turn into the neighborhood and create these beautiful plazas and filled with water features and greenery. And then just on the kind of day-to-day, take a lap around the block, there's always a park or amenity for families and kids. The sidewalks are wider than normal. So if you think of a parent with kids in strollers, someone in a wheelchair, they can pass by each other. The verge is wider than normal so that the trees can grow larger, the roots spread out, you actually get shaded sidewalks, and then all of the plantings are native salt tolerant. So you've got this whole ecosystem that supports a complete mix of housing typologies so that people have choice in where they live. And it will have the feel of this neighborhood that's been developed over time organically.
Yeah, you mentioned the Blue Greenway, which is really a resilience feature there and something that is probably a recurring theme in your work around Norfolk. Have you all been working on a lot of resilience projects or incorporating that kind of mindset into projects you're working on?
Yes, we were really fortunate to get to be the local host firm for the Dutch Dialogues when that happened, I guess back in 2015, 16. And from there, that led to the National Disaster Resilience Competition. And so every time something comes up, we learn these lessons kind of watershed by watershed, and we've learned them from our friends at Wagner Ball in New Orleans, SGA and WPA locally, Orbis, who's in this building. And so every time we learn something new about a watershed, we take it to the next one. So that's allowed us to connect things we learned, Chesterfield Heights over by NSU, the Chrysler Museum, Smiths Creek, Newton's Creek, right around the Hermitage. And so each project builds on that. Most recently, the resilience work we did, Sam Bowling is the lead architect for the Elizabeth River project, the Ryan Resilience Lab. So it's like every project is an opportunity to push coastal resilience design forward and lift up the area.
So in downtown Norfolk, just a few blocks from your office, there's the new TCC Arts and Design Center that just opened, and you all got to play a part in that. Can you tell us more about what went into that project?
Sure. We're really proud of that one. Full credit to Aaron and Allie and Corey and team as the lead designers on that one. It's a 35,000 square foot former grocery store. So it was the old Farm Fresh downtown. It was probably too large of a grocery store at the time for the population we had downtown. So the grocery store failed. at that time. We're ready for another one now. But nevertheless, it was such an amazing opportunity to build on the success of TCC and activating our downtown. You walk down Granby Street and you see the governor's school students. So the students really make up a big part of the downtown vibrancy. It was led by the professors at TCC and how they situated the studios inside. And what I love is that instead of making it easier on themselves as professors and, sticking all the graphic design rooms side by side, if you walk along Bush Street, they very carefully chose a painting room, a graphic design room, a drawing room, and they did it to create streetscape vibrancy so that all of us walking by the building could look in and see everything that TCC has to offer. And it was done on a tight budget. It's a really beautiful space, and it was so heartwarming to see all of the local arts community come out for the grand opening. ODU was there, NSU was there. I mean, people were here from all over the region, and the arts community really supports its own. It's great.
So you mentioned, that used to be a grocery store space, and then we probably could use the grocery store now. What else, as you look out at the future of Norfolk, are you hoping to see there, or you think still might be missing as you look to try to help more amazing design projects come to fruition?
Are you talking the whole city or downtown or
citywide?
Citywide?
Or if you want to stay downtown.
No, let's talk about citywide. There's two national trends that are happening that I think affect the whole city. Downtowns are becoming more residential, so not all of our commercial office space will lease up. More people are moving in. There's convergence happening to that space. And then some of our neighborhoods are getting back their mom and pop shops and neighborhood commercial main streets. For decades, we tried to zone everyone into uses. Here's where you live. Here's where you'll work. Here's where you'll buy things. And I think we've all come to learn to appreciate how good it feels to live in a place where you don't always have to get in your car and you can walk. You can do most of the things you need to do in life in a 10 or 15-minute walk. So I think that's starting to happen everywhere. Ward's Corner, Ocean View, Midtown Norfolk, downtown is becoming more residential, Military Circle. Anyway, throughout the whole city, people are starting to have everything they need a little bit closer to their neighborhood. And we need to lean into that and push that.
Yeah, the residential aspect of the city is something I know you all worked on in your Missing Middle pattern book, which is, emphasis on the kind of mid-range density housing. Can you tell us what kind of prompted that to come to fruition?
Yeah. Well, the city of Norfolk won a grant for that. So that was funded by CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant. And the first thing we did, we knew we wanted variety. So we very quickly reread Dan Perlick's book on Missing Middle. And then we invited our friends at two other firms to come join us in designing things. So we invited Dills Architects and G-Arc, also in downtown, amazing architects. And we really just looked at the history of our city and what we had. And we have this amazing kind of wealth of missing middle buildings that already exist. They actually make up for 75% of what we call naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA.
Wow.
And so they're ownership agnostic. They could be condos, they could be co-ops, they could be apartments. They're generally not subsidized in any way, but they're kind of affordable or attainable by design. And so the premise of it is, hey, we've always had it here.
Yeah.
It's worked well for us. Why don't we allow what we had previously allowed to be built again? And that's going to give people more options. So we're working on actually making that happen. The pattern book was published over 2 years ago, and we're still working on kind of the zoning, kind of eliminating some barriers to actually get the stuff built.
Yeah, one of the typologies that I know you guys named was the Norfolk six-pack.
Yes.
As something we already see happening a lot in the city. Was that a name that you all coined, or is something that you maybe found somewhere?
I think the first time I heard it said was years ago in a design review committee meeting by Mason Andrews, who used to chair that committee.
Okay.
Everyone, I don't know, our elders
been
had
around a
always,
little bit,
it's just
yeah.
been around. I have no idea where it came from, but it's that typology of 3 units, the central stair, the 3 units on the side. Many of us have lived in them. It feels great. You walk in the front door, there's a foyer, there's usually a table there for mail. You run into your neighbors and you all have porches and get to enjoy this climate. So we really can't build that in many neighborhoods again. And we're bring back the Norfolk six-pack. It worked for us before. It could work again.
So you mentioned there's still, some amount of barriers to maybe getting more things like Norfolk Six Pack built in the city of Norfolk.
Yeah.
What are some of the big ones that you see out there?
Sure. Parking. Right now, most of our many of our neighborhoods and zoning districts require that we have, parking for at least one parking space for every unit. Sometimes in our suburban character districts, we're up to 2 or 2.5 parking spaces per unit. We're a city that's really all about redevelopment. We're pretty built out. We don't have a lot of empty lots, and we have to make the best use of our space. And if you think about trying to fit a six-pack residential unit, plus all the parking needed, plus the next challenges, take care of our stormwater, all of the rain that falls has to be held on the site. There's just not a lot of space. And so we really have to rethink really our value system as a community. And we often say the city, the city, the city, but really people, and especially younger people, have to speak up about what they value and what they hold dear. Do we want to put the emphasis on how many parking spaces we have, or making sure we have enough housing for people? And we've got to find the right balance there. So those are some of the challenges.
Yeah, on the parking aspect, I know downtown doesn't have parking minimums anymore, and recently the historic overlay in the railroad district area has moved that parking minimum out. Do you hope that that's something that you'll see in other parts of the city as well, that they maybe will pull off some of those parking minimums?
I do, and especially in places where it makes sense. So it makes sense when community members kind of commit to it. If we're a family of 2 or 3 or 4, we can make do with one car, or actually I don't need a car and I can bike and walk to everything I need to do. So when it's right for that community and they come to the city and say, hey, we've banded together, we're on the same page, we want to get rid of this thing, it's going to allow our community to grow and welcome new people, then it's the right thing. There's places where that's not the right thing to do. And so we just have to respect each neighborhood.
Yeah. So Mel, really appreciate you being here. Is there anything else that you really want folks listening to know about what you're working on personally, what WPA is doing, or just other projects going on in the city of Norfolk?
No, I think I just want people to know we're always here for anyone in the city as a resource. We've got this amazing building to welcome you into. Yeah. Our whole team enjoys having conversations about the future of our city and the region. And just please consider us to have an open door and come talk to us.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat, and look forward to seeing you around Assembly.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.